Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Negotiation. My name is Todd Embley, and I'm thrilled to welcome to the show Heidi Dugan, Chair of the Australian Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai. And in addition to her role at AustCham, Heidi is an accomplished entrepreneur, consultant, influencer, and she has lived in China for 27 years. Today, we're going to hear about Heidi's recent developments at the AustCham relations, as well as her fascinating career path. Heidi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's just a delight to get the opportunity to talk to you.
Yes, well, as usual, I know you usually do most of your talking on your shows, and once again, I'm going to be leaning on you to do most of the talking for this show as well. But first, I want to start, what city are you in that we are recording you from today?
Yep, I'm in Shanghai.
Okay, and is that where you are usually based? Is that where you live?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here most of the time, and of course, travel back to Australia quite often through business and play. But the majority of the time is in Shanghai.
Okay. Now, do you live in the Pudong side or the Puxi side?
I'm a true Shanghainese, and I
So
live
you're the
in
Puxi side. Yeah.
exactly in
Yeah,
that
I know where you're
part
going with that.
of Puxi. I'm right near Xintiandi, so
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So basically, I can walk pretty much everywhere.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I used to live near the Jing'an Temple, so
Hmm.
uh, but Shintendi, there's so many fascinating places, mostly on the Puxi side, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Pudong was on the other side of the Bund. It was recently developed ever since the early 2000s. In 12 years, you wouldn't recognize it. It went from cow pastures to skyscrapers. I mean, it's unbelievable what has been done over there, but it's so new. And as Heidi said, for those who know, Puxi is where it's at. All
Yeah.
right, moving on. Many listeners are familiar with AustCham Shanghai and the role of business chambers in general. Now, can you introduce your chamber or the Aust Chamber, the AustCham, the Australian Chamber, paint a picture of the membership, and maybe tell us about the important work that you're doing there?
Yeah, so the fundamental idea behind AustCham is to work with Australian and Chinese businesses that are wanting to do trade and investment within the two countries. And that also expands to other companies that are wanting to tap into those two markets. So we do also have Canadian, American, British companies that join us, but that have some sort of entity in Australia or again in China, and they're wanting to move into Australia. So we support that, and we're really, the biggest facilitators of connections to get real business results. The idea behind our chamber is that we're looking at what our members do, what they need to grow successful businesses. And we look at two different areas. One is the successful business. What support can we give them? What connections can we give them to grow? And then secondly, as a person, as a family, or whoever it is that's actually living here, how can we support them through that social side of things so
Hmm.
that they're enjoying the whole process?
Hmm. Okay, great. Now, I have to get to this. I'm eager to get to this. The big news in the Australian China relations thing is that the Australian PM, Anthony Albanese, recently made a state visit to China. Can you tell us, when did that happen? Why did he
Yeah.
come? And what happened while he was there?
Okay, so this has to be the hottest news off the press. Australia and China have had this incredible relationship for over 50 years, and it's been amazing for most of that. And then there were some difficulties over the last probably 3, 4 years, and a sign of change was our Prime Minister Albanese coming to China and having, diplomatic conversations with Xi Jinping up in Beijing. But also, more exciting for us, the business community, is that he came to Shanghai and attended CIIE, and we put on a very big lunch where all of the business community were able to get to hear him speak in person, get to meet him. But what it has actually done is it's kind of like broken that barrier and it's opened things up again. After that, we've also had, the Minister for Trade and Tourism, the Honourable Don Farrell. He came in as well. We had the Premier for Queensland. She came in, and so it was just one thing after the other. And I always think that, doing one thing is great and it sort of says, hey, listen, we're changing. But when you've got delegations after delegations coming in within a 1 week period, it's sending a very clear message to everyone that this relationship is important, that this relationship will continue, and that we're going to, from both parties, do our best to maintain that. So it was very, very exciting.
I can imagine. I'm also imagining you didn't sleep too much during that week. A
Yeah,
lot to do
it
and a
was
lot to prep.
crazy. It was crazy, like we really haven't had that many people coming back into town for such a long period of time, and everyone came at the same time. So it was, we had New South Wales government, the Victorian government, the Queensland government. They did these big events where they brought their delegations in, and it was like going to a party where you saw all your old friends that you hadn't seen for 4 or 5 years. And it was just like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh, it's so good to see you. So it really, for everyone that has been in China and Shanghai over the last 4 years, I think the last week, as tiring as it may have been, it's really, it's sort of filled us up. It's sort of made us, brought that hope
Hmm.
back in, and it's given us the energy and the strength to keep doing and to, moving ahead quite quickly now.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, you're kind of the host, right?
I am a
So a
host.
lot of
Yep.
responsibility. Yeah, I mean, you're the host of all the delegations, right? You're
Yes.
really the host of everybody coming in. And yes, I know you are a host of your show, but yes, you are also the host for the
Yep.
big party in China, and so it sounds like it went amazing, and congratulations on that. I
Thank you.
know even looking at Bill Bishop's cynicism, the newsletter and whatnot, talking about is now the time when everybody's going to get bullish on China again. I mean, if you're reading the tea leaves, these are the kinds of things that would lead you to believe, yes, now is the time. And if you want to get a jump and get ahead, start now. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's
I'm so
fantastic.
glad you said
Congratulations.
that though, Todd,
Yeah.
because up until a week ago, really, there's still been this air of apprehension
Hmm.
from all the companies that you talk to. Should I? Shouldn't I? Let's still discuss it. We hear this word diversification, and people are sort of like, And what I think people, businesses have misunderstood with the media is that when we talk about diversification, it doesn't mean pulling out of China. It means keep going hard with China and look at other regions within the Asia region that can also support that business. So that's the message that I think we've been able to clarify a little bit over the last week. And as you just said, now is the time. So many businesses over the last 3 years left the country. So we have the hindsight. We understand business from, 13, 15, 20 years ago. We've learnt so much, and now we've almost got this clear and clean playing field that with the understanding and education, we can really, companies can smash it. They're coming back in. They're coming in smarter. They're coming in with a proper plan. They're not just kind of riding this wave that they used to, cross our fingers and wish for the best kind of thing. Now people are coming in and they're going, we're committed. This is the long haul. It's not a 2 year plan. It's not a 3 year plan. It's 5, 10, 15, 20 year plans. And that's where we're going to see much more success.
Yeah. And that is the key, is to come in with that long-term strategy and that long-term plan. That's really the most effective way to enter, be successful, and sustain that success in China for sure. Now,
Exactly.
in reverse, you recently visited the Parliament House in Canberra, about Australia-China relations. What were your main messages that you're delivering to the Australian government there and the business leaders there when you go back?
So for me, there are two main messages. One specifically for government is that whilst all of this has been happening, we have still had this incredible support from the Chinese government, the local government. And that's really important for government in Australia to understand that we did not lose their support. I think more so now what's happening is that there's just more opportunity for us to work together. So that's really important because the support that's been there has been consistent, and it has been on a business level, but it's also been on very personal levels, which I think is just incredible. So that's the first message. The second message is the Australians that are here are, we're sticking our feet deep down into the earth and we're staying, and we need the support of the government because it makes things easier. But we don't rely on the government. We always rely on what we can do here. We ask for their support and their help because it makes things easier. But the people doing business here, AustCham's Shanghai is commercial. So we are all about what can we do when there are circumstances that are against you, that you're against the odds, that we stay strong and that we move together, as a group and as individuals. And then finally is for the businesses in Australia, my message to them is about creating that story. When they want to connect with the Chinese consumer, it's really all about the story that they create, about who they are, why they created those products, why they created that brand. And the story of blue skies and green grass in Australia, although it's incredibly important, it's not the only message that we now need to be sending out there. And it helps us for anything to do with health and wellness, but really we need to make sure that we're sharing that message, and all the other messages of how we build the business. And we need to invest in China like we would in our own market. Todd, when you set up your own business in, whether it's Canada, Australia, UK, people mortgage their home. They, spend their life, putting everything into it. And for some reason, when they go to China, they go, I went to one trade show or two trade shows and someone said, I'll take a container. And so they kind of wash their hands of actually doing businesses in this country. And that's the worst thing you can do. What I would love is for Australian businesses to do what they did in their own home country and completely commit and invest in this market. And then I know that they're going to really reap those benefits.
Okay. So as those Australia-China relations warm, what are the main growth opportunities, industry sectors, what have you, that you highlight for Australian companies to be successful in China?
So there are some key markets that we've seen really on the uptake. There is definitely in the medical side of things, and that's everything to do with medical equipment, services, but then also we come into the health and wellness. Health and wellness is still such a big aspect where we're talking about the supplements, the nutrients. Those areas are big. They're continuing to be big. The other side, I would say, is education. Education has been consistently good. I see that now really growing, and then the relationships between Australian universities with Chinese universities to become much more integrated. And now that we've already, through COVID, we were so fortunate that we've expanded our understanding of what you can do digitally. So now the education organizations can now sort of lean on that experience and incorporate it into the delivery of their programs. So I think that they're the big ones. The other one, I suppose, with me personally, that I see a really interesting growth is the cosmetics industry. There's been some real breakthroughs with being able to bring cosmetics into the country. that with the no animal testing. And so that's meant that a lot more brands are now going, okay, I want to do this and I'm committing. So this will be a really interesting space, I think, from cross-border into general trade over the next year to 2 years.
Okay. I want to next focus on consumer brands specifically. Australian consumer brands haven't been affected by market access restrictions and are generally very strong in China. What are some of the most popular Australian brands in China? Which sectors in consumer brands do very, very well? And why do you think the Australian brands resonate with Chinese consumers?
Yeah, so probably the first the two areas that I look at, and because I'm working with them a lot more closely, is the wellness and the cosmetics. So for me, we've had Blackmores that has continued to do very well over the years. They have full offices here. They've got teams. They're completely integrated into the system. They've really stayed very, very strong with it. Another interesting company that I have found fascinating called EZZ. They are working with NMN supplements, and they have been here, I think, sort of around 2 to 3 years. They've just done an incredible partnership with High C, and that is a multi-million-dollar partnership that will really grow their business exponentially. And they're a listed company in Australia. And then another one, which I found actually is really interesting, is a Chinese Australian man and his wife set it up, and they moved back to China, and they are the number one skin whitening supplement on the market in TikTok.
Wow.
And they're called Viera. So I think that they're an incredible example of real success in the market. So those three, I think, have been very interesting. Why do the Chinese consumers like these products? Australians, for a very long time, have been the number one health and wellness, I would say, brands in the world. Now, and it is very much because of the level of standards and certification that they have to pass in Australia before it even leaves the country. So it's just well known here. Chinese people do their research, and they can see quite clearly that the Australian health and wellness industry is really next to none. It's just top of the game at the moment. So the Chinese want to buy something that is quality and that is effective.
Okay. What is your take on the sentiment among Australian business community leaders towards China? And I'm including both business leaders in China and back in Australia.
Yeah. So I sort of, if I look at it two ways, the leaders that are in Australia that have not had the opportunity over the last 3 to 4 years to come into the market, they are still, I think, apprehensive. I think that as I said, over the last week, it's made a massive difference to the tone and the message that's been set out there. So I think that there's still that apprehension. Now, we have had hundreds of Australians over the last week come into the country. And I think the sentence or word that I heard most was, "Oh my goodness. Oh, wow, cannot believe it." I think that a lot of people thought that over the last 3, 4 years is that Shanghai, China's been leveled and that it was sort of, boarded up buildings and that. It's nothing like that. It is an incredible international city. So when they come into town, they just go, cannot believe it. Absolutely cannot believe it. It is, as it was before, better than it was before, or if they've never been there here, they're just going, like, if only I came earlier. So So they're the people that are really important. They're the important people because they go home to Australia, they post it, they talk to, the other people in their businesses, they go back to the boards and they then share this message. And if they can share one message, I think the best thing is, if you don't believe me, get on a plane and fly over here. Because when you're here, you instantly understand.
It's interesting. How long have you been in China?
It's now just nearly 28 years.
Just.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I can't even speak to that long, but I remember the old days, call them a little bit, 2000 to 2010. And that was when you really saw, especially when the iPhone came out and you saw a billion people have access to the internet. I mean, everything was changing, and there was Tencent and Alibaba and Baidu and you just, then of course Xiaomi and it was just gangbusters going on. And then there was this 2012 to 2018 flood of people who came in, and then COVID kind of happened, and then a lot of people wanted to go back home. They were taking care of loved ones and whatnot, and there was kind of a bit of a just a retreat back home for a million different reasons. But it's, I think the opportunity in China has remained the same. Some of the rules, like, China continues to grow up, and they
Yeah.
continue to put the same restrictions that the EU or North America put on products or imports or what have you. I think some of this feeling of apprehension is just because things have changed. They haven't gotten worse. It's still amazing. It's still the best opportunity on the planet if you want to grow your brand. You just have to keep up with the changing landscape. And it changes a lot because there was a lot of changes that needed to be made, as China has grown up faster than pretty much any other country has on the planet to date. So, ergo, it's still amazing. You go there, it is absolutely vibrant. It is just bristling and bustling with activity. And yeah, like you said, if you don't believe the hype, just get on a plane, go put your boots on the ground, and you will quickly realize this is the place to be. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to keep moving forward. I want to bring up CIIE, which you brought up, the China International Import Expo, which you had talked about. I'd like you to maybe just tell us a little bit about CIIE and your
Mm.
experience there, and a little bit more about the Australian presence that was actually at the expo. Any takeaways from the event that you saw?
So CIIE, this is the sixth CIIE that we've had in Shanghai, and it was, I would say, this was a project that Xi Jinping really invested in the first few years. In really sort of opened all of the expos, and it was encouraging not just individual brands but also countries to be very much a part of it. And the whole idea is that it is the biggest international expo in the world for this region. Now, over the last few years, it sort of, I would say, it's slowed down a little bit just because of technicalities. People weren't able to come into the country. And so we had, organizations like Austrade, AustCham helping and representing at CIIE. So this CIIE was probably, I think, the biggest and the best, because everyone was coming back in from all of the different countries, and people again were excited. They were invested in it. It's unlike, if you have never been to it, it's unlike the basic trade shows that you go to. This is high end trade show. This is quality trade show, where each of the booths are doing, contract signing, taking photos, putting it out in the media. They do at the end of CIIE, they put together all the registered contracts that were signed, and they say, this is how many contracts were signed during this period of time. So that's a really important thing to note, that they are all about the conversion. And a lot of trade shows are not about that. So that's interesting. Um, Australia had a massive, massive presence this year. We, especially in the food and beverage area, we had a huge pavilion that sort of covered Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, amazing. And then, of course, also we've got in the health and wellness, we had a big one from New South Wales. And also with Blackmore, so yeah, it was incredible. It's worthwhile doing. It's worthwhile going to. But really, this trade show is different because it's about the conversion. That's what they're recording, about the connections and the conversion.
Mm. Well, I'm not surprised about the food and beverage. For those who have been hiding under a rock, Australian beef and Australian wine, like seriously, you can't beat it, right? I'm sure Heidi, you would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and that is that is incredible to hear. Again, I think everything is pointing up, and it's been a busy few weeks. Obviously, with CIIE, you had the PM visit. There was also this tiny little shopping festival that has happened. It's a little thing called Singles Day
Yeah.
that we talk about all the time on this show for 4 years. Can you tell us what your takeaways were, what your experiences were with with Singles Day, and what you were seeing from even the Australian brand side of things?
Yeah. So, single double 11 has been such a big thing, and honestly the marketing that's been out there is just absolutely insane. And the fact that it used to be one day and then now they extend it to almost a month because they just didn't have the capacity to be able to deliver and to send the products. So I think that in itself is just an incredible thing, and it's completely thought up by Alibaba team. Oh my goodness! Like if only we could do that in our own countries. Is just invent this holiday. So this year was so weird for me because Double 11 arrived, and someone commented to me and said, "Oh, have you gone and bought?" A whole heap of stuff off Double 11. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, is it today? And it was the weirdest thing because I'm in media and then in business, all you normally hear about is Double 11 during this period of time. I didn't hear anything about it this year. And it's not to say it wasn't happening. I think it was because we were so focused on CIIE and about what was happening. I just didn't see that there was as much of an impact in the market this year. And I imagine that there is a very good reason behind that. As you were saying, the sales that happens during this period of time over the last 15 years has been incredible. Everything is stabilizing. I won't say, because people talk about, oh, it's all slowing down and stopping.
Mm-hmm.
China is so big, and its growth is always exponentially bigger than Australia. So what is happening is things are stabilizing and not just being this sort of a gold rush. It's all about stabilizing and being part of what we do instead of it being a craze. So I think that this year, yes, it's still very much a part of a lot of brands, their marketing strategy. All of those different festivals are part of their strategy, but it's not the only thing. Back in the day, there were companies that would only come in for Double 11, and they could make their money for the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those kind of days are over. Now it's becoming better business. It's becoming much more stable. It's becoming much more even, and people can really sort of understand. They can properly budget or forecast what they're going to do, what they're going to make, and the expenses that are connected to it. So Double 11 was a bit of a surprise for me. It sort of turned up on my door, and I was like, oh, wow. Okay. And I think also this has got a lot to do with the Chinese government's positioning. They don't want people just spending money, for things that they don't need. They are really reinforcing that idea of sort of bunkering down. Yes, you want to spend, but be conscious about that spend.
Yeah, it's funny because they did promote, really let's spend, let's consume, and drive that. And now it's a little bit of, let's be a little more financially astute and not go crazy because the numbers, I mean, Singles Day is the biggest single shopping day on the planet, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned that, it's still as huge. It sets records every year. But then there is 12/12 just around the corner, right? We
Yeah.
have 6/18, right? We have, so, and those have all grown in massive popularity as well. So I think it doesn't have to be, all resources don't have to be just driven to 11/11. And everybody's trying to keep up with live streaming and whatnot as well. So
Yeah.
now, speaking of that, and speaking of media, which you did mention, I want to now pivot a little bit away. I want to talk a little bit about, and we saved this for later, I want to know more about your 27, 28 years in China. Tell us a little bit about how you ended up in China and what you've been doing since, because obviously I'm trying to, I want to get to the show and the other things. So please tell us a little bit about your background, how you ended up there.
Yeah, so my background was acting, and was going to go UK, US, and got this opportunity to study international trade in China. And I thought it was interesting, just if not just to learn more about myself, go to another culture and sort of move forward, uh, growth, that kind of thing. And then when I came here, I after I'd finished studying, I got a job in Shanghai in real estate. And that really helped me sort of connect with a lot of businesses. We're working mainly with the business, them sort of coming to Shanghai, so helping their senior management find, properties and what have you. So it was through that. And then I, very early on, again, through a connection, met someone that was at the TV station. And at that time, foreigners could not be TV hosts. And I was co-hosting another show. And then it was actually a law that was passed that on the international channel that you could have foreign TV hosts leading the show. And so the first show, and I was the first foreign TV host in China. And it was with my TV show, You Are the Chef. And that was incredible. It's been on air for 23 years. It's a daily show. It has, a following of over 6 million viewers daily. And it's really incredible because it's really a cult following. And I didn't realize at the time what we were doing until I was filming some other shows and there were chefs on it, and they're just like, oh my God, I watched it because I learned how other chefs were cooking. And it was the first time that we brought them out of the kitchen and we were actually learning skills and techniques. So, so it became a cult show, and people have, unfortunately, the comment is, I grew up watching you. So I'm like, okay, or my mum watches you.
Oh, no. Yeah.
You're like, all right, damn it.
I
So
know.
that's really fun, but it also meant that I was working with a lot of food brands and hotels, and then I started connecting a lot more with those brands and representing them as an ambassador. And then I set up a trading company, which then sold off. And I continue to work with brands, albeit very small select group, and either here in the country or that want to come into the country, and help them sort of connect with the consumer, connect them with the right importers, distributors, and things like that to grow their business. And then, the other bulk of my time is really about connecting with my consumer on social media. So I have over 250,000 followers with my personal media, and we work with brands on that. We're very much focused on women and, business women who are, taking their life to the next level, making sure their families are healthy and happy. And so we focus on any brands and products or concepts or philosophies that can actually help them to do that.
Yeah. Well, I know. So where do I start? So through COVID, there was a lot of cooking at home. You had a billion people suddenly relearning how to cook at home. So that must have been tremendous for the show. And we know that just from the data of the consumables, from blenders to pots and pans to everything that was now skyrocketing in purchasing, that was all e-commerce kind of driven. So we know that was really skyrocketing. Must have been good for the show. I got a question for you now. After all of that, how good of a cook are you?
I'm pretty good. It's really funny because I think having learned so much, having so many amazing chefs beside me, I'm really one of those cooks, and I have to, I feel bad saying this, is that I just am terrible at following a recipe. So I'm very good at sort of grabbing anything and everything. So when I cook something that people like, they go, "Oh, can you give me the recipe to it?" It's like, I have absolutely no idea what I did. So yeah, I'm a good cook. I'm probably, I would say, better than being a cook is that I've got an incredible palate. So I'm able to taste the subtleties in flavors and things like that. And even I've worked with the UK Department of International Trade and grown their whiskey and gin tasting to over 10 million viewers. And, I can very quickly and easily say what percentage of alcohol is in it, what sort of juniper, have they used, natural flavoring or non-natural flavoring? Have they, with their beers, have they used the hops from Australia? So I don't know. It's something that wasn't deliberate, but having tasted so many things and having had those opportunities back to back, I think actually I've got a really incredible palate to be able to taste and to understand food and drink as a result of it.
Well, I guess for all the Schitt's Creek fans out there, Heidi probably does know how to fold in the cheese.
Yes. Oh my God. I love that one.
Isn't it? That's
Yeah.
one of the absolute best. Apologies for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. You should go and stream that show. It's amazing. Now, what is it like working, and a little bit of inside baseball, if you don't mind, what's it like working as a TV host in China?
Look, it's amazing. We've been doing it for so long and the team love doing it. Like, really, we had retired lighting man, sound man, because they just love, coming along with it. So it's like a family. I think it's different to, if I had this show in Australia, I think my life would be quite different. The Chinese are always, the media are very, very positive. I've never had anything negative said about me in the media here. The Chinese people are incredible and very respectful about coming up and sort of, saying hello and introducing themselves. So I pretty much lead a normal life and get the opportunity to meet a lot of people if I'm out and about, when they come up and introduce themselves. So what the show is not what I am. So I'm part of that process, but for me, it's just me being authentic, I think, on TV. And so, just doing what I do and what I love doing every day. So I think that's a really good place to be.
Okay, last topic of conversation for us. And I want to say this correctly because I actually didn't get to confirm how this is said. And the French of my Canadian upbringing makes me want to say arrête. But is it arrête mastery or is it arrête mastery?
It's arete, so it's a Greek word.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Arete.
Arete,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
Tell us about arete mastery, please.
So Arete Mastery is my business. It's what holds the company. It's the business that acts as an advisor for other companies coming in. We're the people that are on the ground that get that sort of oversight of what's happening. And it means that through my team, we're able to support those businesses to help them grow. So and I think because of that, it's also, opened up so many opportunities. I'm also the on the board of University of Southern Queensland. So, and it's because of universities wanting that China connection or understanding of what's happening here. So, Arete has allowed me to also, because of our unique standing and connection also with the consumer, it gives me such an incredible oversight about businesses coming in, but then also the consumer, and then connecting those two.
Yeah, keeps your finger on the pulse too.
Yeah.
I find there's always something to be said for a little bit of consulting on the side, although you might do it far more than a little. Now, I guess now that I've got that, I just want to give you one last opportunity to maybe help our guests be able to follow you, to consume your content, to be able to get in touch, to be able to reach you. Please tell us where and how and the best way to do it.
Well, the easiest way is to go to heididugan.com, and then also LinkedIn and Instagram are probably the best, and it's Heidi Dugan. So if you search me, you'll find me. It's pretty easy to do. And I'd love to hear from, if anyone's got any questions or wants to reach out to find out more about the China market or what I'm doing. Be very, very open to having that conversation.
Awesome. Well, it's great when our guests are set up and have easily findable profiles that have links and so forth to be able to get in touch or to find the content or what have you. So Heidi Dugan, Chair of the Australian Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai, thank you very, very much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Okay, as a reminder for everybody, if you are listening to us audio only, please don't be afraid to go and check out our YouTube channel and the YouTube shorts over at the WPIC YouTube channel. And for those watching on video, if you need your eyes and your ears and your eyes for everything else that you might be doing, as being on a stair climber or trying to drive your car, please feel free to check out the audio version on the podcast, available on all your favorite podcast platforms. For myself and for everybody at The Negotiation and for Heidi, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.